Hey y'all, Kwakests here, back with another video, and today I'm listing the top 10 villains I want to see in Marvel's Avengers. One thing I think everyone can agree on is that this game needs more villains. Whether it's in villain sectors or in iconic missions, I think they just need to start adding more iconic villains these characters can fight. Adding at least 2 of these villains within the next year or so could really go a long way for this game, but without further ado, let's just get on to the list. Number 10, we got Ronin the Accuser. While I personally don't care much about Ronin, Captain Marvel's imminent arrival requires some Kree villains for her to fight, and he's the most well-known Kree villain, I'd say, thanks to the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. However, I can see them totally going with an obscure character, but I think it would make the most sense to go with Ronin, especially because of the MCU connection, but maybe they just do something different. Either way, the game just needs more villains. Gameplay wise, I don't have any specific ideas. I think they could be kind of creative with him, using his hammer and like the beams he can shoot if they give him like his power stone. But overall, I think Ronin could be cool to just like beat up in the game as a villain sector or iconic mission, whatever they choose to do for Captain Marvel. Number 9, we have the Enchantress. I've heard rumors recently about Jane Foster joining the game, which would kind of make sense, especially since the Thor movie is dropping this year, so she might drop with that, even though they didn't really do that with SpiderMan and No Way Home, or whatever. I'm not really crazy about a Thor Echo character, but it would be the perfect opportunity to finally add Asgard as a region, which the game should have launched with. Enchantress could be a boss character similar to Crossbones, just like a pre-boss, and yeah, she could be leading into a boss fight with another character on this list, but we'll talk about that when we get there. And I think they could go pretty crazy with her gameplay wise. It could be really creative, and it also get us a step closer to Scarlet Witch being playable, so that's another win. At number 8, we have an interesting one, the Winter Soldier. And I know he's pretty much confirmed to be a playable hero, but I still think it'd be pretty cool to get a Cap-focused mission, or a mission with Cap and Falcon, hopefully, since, Falcon was on my list as the characters I want to get in the game. But having Bucky as a villain in one of those missions, and then after you defeat him, you unlock him, maybe that could be the first mission of Bucky's operation, if they're giving him one. But I think that would be a cool mechanic to have, the anti-heroes, him, Scarlet Witch maybe, if she ever eventually joins the game. You just beat them up and then you get to play as them. And he could play similar to Crossbones and Taskmaster, when you're fighting against him. And however he plays as his playable hero self. Combining those 3 things, I think that could be pretty cool. And yeah, I'd like to fight against Bucky as well as play as him. Okay, at number 7, we have 2 characters because I actually couldn't decide between them, Kingpin and Elektra. Wilson Fisk is a pretty iconic Marvel character, and he's tangled with Avengers before, recently on Hawkeye and Spider-Man a lot. He even fought Spider-Man hand to hand in the game, which just shows you how crazy strong he is, even though he doesn't have superpowers, which is always funny. He'd also be pretty likely to do shady business with AIM and Monica, so that could be your story connection. And gameplay wise, I think he'd be pretty similar to your normal just beat 'em up boss. Maybe doing some things unique, but that's for the developers to figure out. I think Elektra could open up the door to a new Shadowland region maybe, where the hand are the villains and they replace the AIM robots. I think it'd be a cool change of pace to fight ninjas instead of robots. As a boss, I think she'd be pretty formidable. She could hold her own against the Avengers, I think, except for the obvious ones like Thor and whatever. But if Taskmaster can take them on, then why not Elektra? And she could throw her size, just be a deadly assassin. And I'd be here for it. I'd like to fight against her, so I really couldn't decide between her and Kingpin, so I'll just say them both. Yeah. At number 6, we have Dormammu. Dormammu's a classic Doctor Strange villain, who I also think has a pretty good chance of making it into the game. He could come with a new Dark Dimension region with different magical enemies, but I also don't know if Crystal Dynamics would want to do that much. And after Strange's campaign, the boss fight could be turned into an Omega level threat, because that's a pretty big fight against Dormammu. And yeah, he played very uniquely. The rest of the magic bosses, like Enchantress and the other character on this list, they'd all play very uniquely. They're different objectives, different moves you gotta look out for. I think Dormammu is pretty realistic, and he'd be cool to have. At number 5, we have a SpiderMan villain. It could really be any of them, but I think it's just a really big missed opportunity that Spider-Man didn't come with any villains at all, not even an iconic mission, or not even Molson Man, who they tease in game. I just think that if you're gonna add a console exclusive character, you gotta go all the way. You can't just drop the character and nothing else. Anyways, more specifically, I'd like to see Doc Ock or Green Goblin or both, since Spider-Man has the best rogues gallery in Marvel, and I think that you could really pick anyone from the core Sinister Six and it'd be cool. But for a villain sector, since Spider-Man's already in the game, I think that an Oscorp level, which could just be a reskin aim hive if they want to be lazy, I'd take that if we got more villains. It could just end in a boss fight with Green Goblin and Doc Ock teaming up like they did, Claw and Crossbones did in that mission in Black Panther's campaign. I think that could be pretty cool. You gotta watch out for Doc Ock's arms while dodging pumpkin bombs. I think an Oscorp level could be really cool, and it's a pretty big missed opportunity. At number 4, we have Wenwu, aka the Mandarin in the comics. Shang-Chi's a likely character to join this game after his recent movie blew up the character in terms of popularity. And with Shang-Chi, the 10 Rings could be the perfect villains for his operation. The 10 Rings have ties to both Iron Man and Shang-Chi, and in this storyline, they'd be working with AIM to harness energy from Ta Lo, which would be the new region for this operation, and it'd naturally get all of the Avengers involved. We get new enemies with the 10 Ring soldiers and some creatures from Ta Lo, and the new region of Ta Lo, and the Mandarin overall would just be a formidable enemy. The boss fight could be pretty unique depending on which direction they go, comics or movie. I think they should and would go in the movie direction. I really want Wenwu in the game as a boss. Okay, at number 3, we have the Mad Titan Thanos. Thanos might be a little too big for this game, I think, especially since I don't think they do the whole Infinity Stone storyline, and they're already doing the pre-invasion storyline, so it'd take a while. But after Endgame, how do you have an Avengers game without being able to fight Thanos? I mean, he's arguably the Avengers' most popular villain currently. Gameplay wise, he could be either an Omega level threat or a raid, because he's Thanos, and he could have mini bosses in the Black Order that lead up to him, with you getting Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive grouped together for a boss fight, and Ebony Maw and Call Obsidian grouped together for a boss fight. It could really be any order of them, but I think that's the most realistic, since Proxima and Corvus are a couple. But you could have you could fight them similar to I'm gonna keep referencing Crossbones, but similar to how he was at the beginning of the Black Panther expansion. And yeah, they could really do a lot with Thanos, but I don't know if they would. I feel this is more for a sequel maybe, because it's a lot for just a DLC. Okay, at number 2 on my list is Ultron, and I think it's actually pretty crazy that he's not in the game already, because he fits so ridiculously well, especially with the whole robots gameplay style. But after the Monica villain sector, which you can find a walkthrough of on my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. There was a tease for Ultron as Roy doubled back on that cube, and I really think Ultron would be the perfect villain for this game. He's a big villain, he's iconic and a robot, so gameplay wise I really don't think it'd be that hard to put him in, and yeah, he just fits really well. That's why he's so high up on my list. I think we could see him by the end of the year, especially since there's already been a tease for him. The number one villain that we need in Marvel's Avengers is definitely Loki, and it's crazy to me that he's not in the game, since there was a whole point in time where he was the Avengers' only villain. He was teased at the end of the Thor Iconic mission, but he should have just been the final boss for that mission. I thought that was a little sloppy instead of just teasing him. And he was also referenced by Zawabari, but so was every other magical character. Loki could create the perfect opportunity to finally add Asgard as a region with Enchantress, as I was talking about earlier, as the Crossbones type pre-boss. I think that would be really cool, and Asgard should have been a region since launch. I think that's something that an Avengers game should have. Every character should have a region they go to. Instead of Scandinavian Highlands, Thor's iconic mission should have took place in Asgard with Loki as the villain. I could also see Loki being a playable hero that you unlock after you defeat him. Like I was saying, they should do with Bucky and Wanda if they have her. Especially since Marvel seems to be taking Loki in the hero direction, especially in the MCU. But yeah, I think Loki's a need for this game. Adding Loki could definitely breathe some new life into it, and adding him as a playable character I think could be pretty big. Yeah, that's my list. So let me know your list down below of the villains you'd want in the game, and make sure while you're down there you like, share, and subscribe. Kwakests out.